You want to make the entrance.
Okay, all rise.
I'm only the vice chair. We haven't seen this many faces in this room, at least I haven't, since I think January of 2020. So, are you all real? Or are you virtual?
We're not sure what to do.
All right, well, thank you for coming. I'll start the Planning Commission meeting for Murray City, October 7th. It's 6:31. Welcome all of you attendees in the flesh. I love it. If you're Murray, watching on Murray streaming video, welcome as well. So tonight we've got commissioners Jeremy Lowry, Jake Pearson, Lisa Milkevich, Travis Ney, myself, Ned Hacker. I'm the vice chair. And excused this evening are Susan Wilson and the chair, Maren Patterson, and our staff, Jared Hall at the front table, Zachary Smallwood, and Susan Nixon. So with that, if you're here for the meeting for agenda item number 5, which is a general plan zone map amendment submitted by Joe Colosimo for 5700 South, 800 West, that item will not be heard tonight. It's been postponed or rescheduled for October 21. So if you're here in this meeting or online, that meeting isn't, or that particular item is not going to be heard this evening. And another staff member hiding in the back, Brian Farnsworth, is our legal person. Let's see what else we have here. So some other administrative items. Public may view this meeting via live stream at www.murraycitylive.com or at https://www.facebook.com/MurrayCityUtah. You may submit comments via email at planningcommission@murray.utah.gov. And comments are limited to 3 minutes or less. Written comments, if we have any, will be read during the meeting. And the only other item is if you have an electronic device with you tonight, I ask that you put that on silent. If you get a call during the meeting, I'd ask you to take that out into the hallway and respect the people who are here to be able to hear and listen. All right, so agenda item number 1 is approval of minutes. We have 2 sets of those, August 19th and September 2nd. So I'd ask commissioners if you all had opportunity to read those and if you had any corrections that you'd like to suggest prior to approval of those.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the findings of fact. Is that okay?
Nope, we're going to do the meeting minutes first.
Oh, why am I on finding of fact?
You want, because
I'm anxious.
That's right. So anything we've had just 2 small errors that we corrected in our pre-meeting. Other than those, any other comments? Then I'll.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the August 19th and September 2nd findings or minutes as submitted with the minor changes noted in the pre-meeting.
All right. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any other discussion?
I have to say, I had that in front of me. I got off track when it didn't hear
We'll
me.
get you later.
Sorry about that.
All right. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right. Those pass. Thank you. Agenda item number 2 is conflict of interest. Everyone have a conflict of interest with the 2 items we have on our agenda this evening?
Mr. Chair, I'll just state that I'm an employee of Intermountain Healthcare and that my wife is the manager of cardiac molecular imaging at Intermountain Medical Center.
All right. Are you radioactive?
I am not.
All right. Good. I think that's probably okay. All right. Anybody else?
No.
All right. Good. And third, Commissioner Milkevich.
Now,
Approval of findings of fact.
there you go.
Everybody had opportunity to read those. We have 2 of those from our previous meeting.
Yes.
Yes.
All right. If no comments.
Mr. Lowry, did you have any comments? Okay.
All right. I'll entertain a motion.
There you go. Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the findings of facts for the Bullion Place planned unit development. The applicant was Michael Brodsky, and it was a conditional use permit. And do I need to make the motion for separate? Or just
You
one
can
for
make them
both?
together.
Okay. And for the second finding of fact for Murray Heights planned unit development, the applicant was Brian Price, and it was a conditional use permit.
All right. I have a motion to approve those 2 findings of fact. Is there a second? And is there any discussion? All right. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right. Good. Those are our administrative items. So first item agenda, number 4, is conditional use permit and master site plan approval. And Zachary Smallwood is going to give us staff report.
All right. Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair Hacker. This is a master site plan review for new mixed-use development at 380 West, 4850 South, and 447 West, 4800 South. As you can see up on the screen, it's located here about just a little bit west of I-15 and 4800 South. The Galleria parking lot is to the south of this property. Right now, it's mostly just field. So I wanted to start out by saying that this project is being reviewed under the 2019 mixed use zone regulations. Recently, in July of 2021, we changed the zoning to Murray Central mixed use. However, this property is vested, which means that they've submitted a complete application prior to the moratorium that was instituted in February of 2021. They submitted, I believe, in early 2020, and we've been working with them internally through different designs and access issues, things like that. So they are vested under the old code. So I kind of redundant, but there are 2 pictures, one for each zone. They're the same colors, they just changed names. So I wanted to make the commission and the public aware of that as we review these. Couple pictures of the site just to kind of start us off. These were taken today. It's very nice weeds next to Little Cottonwood Creek. Took some pictures of the development to the north of this property. This is to kind of illustrate, let's see, specifically these power lines, and we'll get to it in a little bit, but as to why there is additional setback along the Galleria side is to accommodate those power lines. Murray City Power is requiring 20-foot setback from that. So there's an additional setback on the Galleria side to accommodate that. Couple of pictures on the 4800 South side. This used to be a private school. It's kind of overgrown since then. Just foliage is overgrown. So now we'll get into the actual proposal. So the applicants are proposing 371 rental units spread between 3 buildings. This purple one here, Building A, which would have 103 units. Building B, which would take up the large mass of it, which has 228 units. And then Building C, which would have 40 units. Also, we are requiring, the mixed use code requires that horizontal mixed use projects take the frontage. Come on, where's my laser? Takes the whole frontage and takes 75% of that 40 feet back. And that is your commercial requirement. And I apologize, I don't remember exactly how much. It was 18,000 and some change. Hold on one second. Sorry about that. Yeah, 18,571. that's how many they're providing. And there is a requirement of 18,544. So they are just barely going over that. So this is the landscaping plan. So they're showing the improvements along Galleria Drive and along 4800 South here, as well as landscaping. If I can zoom in here a little bit, they're proposing outdoor seating areas located here, as well as amenity spaces above the retail on building B and above the retail on building A. Then kind of, I don't know why this is being temperamental. So I kind of zoomed in here to kind of show that they are providing the required 7-foot sidewalks and 5-foot park strips here. Wait, that's not right. It's 8 and 7. Sorry. I was thinking of MCCD. 8-foot park strips, 7-foot sidewalks, and with trees on center spaced about 30 to 40 feet. And as I kind of mentioned earlier on, this is a little bit set back on the Galleria side to accommodate those power lines will be here in the park strip area. So we'll move on to the buildings. So this is the retail building that is located here in green. This is purely retail with some outdoor seating to the south of it. It's mostly made up of brick and I apologize, light blue siding and that brick and masonry materials. This is building A. So this is has a mix of materials, vertical siding, stucco and stone and brickwork as well. And you can kind of see here, I know this was brought up in the pre-meeting, but you can see here the stairs located that would go up to the publicly available rooftop area on building A. This is kind of just a couple perspectives of it. Then I also wanted to show the amenities area. So again, this is a rendering of that parking area or that publicly available area, as well as showing the plan view of that area. This is also a rendering showing building A amenities, showing that pool area. I know there were questions whether that pool is publicly available or not, and I would kind of defer those to the applicant when it's their turn to come up. So we'll move on to building B. Building B is definitely the largest of the buildings. So this is the side facing Galleria. So there is as it was called out in your staff report, there were fire access issues, and an innovative way of addressing this. They've put a tunnel, pretty much, not a tunnel, but an opening through the building that is tall enough to allow for a fire truck to pass through, and is 26 feet wide, that will pass through the building. So this is the Galleria side. This is the south side of the project, or of this building. And then here you have, I apologize, that's the north side of the building. This is the south side of the building. Come on. South side of the building on this side, and then this would be the west side with the other exit showing through the building. And then again, I'll zoom in here. These are, you can kind of see the outline of the steps that would go to the publicly available amenity area. Again, same materials as the entire project is pretty much the same type of materials with that blue siding, metal panels, things like that. Here's kind of an illustrative picture of that staircase going up to that area. Then this is more of the private amenity side of it in building B, showing the I apologize. This one is not. Your lower right is the retail rooftop with with some seating area and stuff like that. However, these courtyards would be reserved for the residents. Some additional kind of rendering areas showing you some of the resident space. Then moving on to building C, these would be 40 studio units with some retail on the bottom floor here. And then also this is kind of where a lot of, there was some amenity space on the remainder of the ground floor. Front and back, or north and south, this is the south side. On your right is the north side. Then their rooftop amenity that they have with seating areas and fire pits, things like that. So one thing I didn't address is parking. They are required to have, let's see. I apologize. They are required to have 460 spaces for the units, and they have provided 472. 396 of those are located within parking structures, so within the surface or within the walls of the building. That equates to about 84% located within parking or within the walls of the building. So they were able to take advantage of the lower parking requirements that the mixed use code allows. The landscaping and open space is approximately 35% or 1.68 acres when I calculated it all out. So they're well over the 15% that's required. And then, so this does have another element, which is the master site plan memorandum of understanding. So as you guys are approving this will continue to go forward, and that has to be adopted and signed off by the council. So any conditions that you guys may place, or the conditions that are located here, with any additional ones that you may place on the applicant, will be part of that memorandum of understanding. So I just talked and felt very monotone to myself, so I apologize. I'm here to answer any questions.
Great. Any commissioners have questions for Zach?
Oh, I'll shoot. Can you talk to me about curb management strategy for deliveries and move in, move out? How are we addressing that?
Yeah, so we have suggested that that the 4800 South side be striped to not allow for parking, but to allow for delivery, and like a time limit on that. So yeah, that's at least on the 4800 South side.
But we don't have anything for the Galleria.
No, I haven't stated anything on the Galleria side. I think that's wide enough and should allow for on-street parking. I could be wrong though.
It's not a heavily traveled road by
It's
any
not
means.
right now. Yeah.
All right. Any other questions? All right. Is the applicant here?
Yes,
All right.
there are a few of them here. Hold on one second.
We knew you were here. All right. Would you please state your name and your address for the record?
Sure. My name is Jory Walker. I'm the principal design architect for Breacher Walker Architects. My address is 13459 South, 1400 East in Draper. I'm excited to be here today and answer any of your questions for you.
Have you had an opportunity to read this long list of conditions?
I have.
And are you going to be able to
Feel very comfortable.
accomplish all of those?
Very
All right.
comfortable, yeah. It's a big project, so there's a lot of little items, there's little detail things, but I think we've really spent a lot of time with the planners and Zach and really worked through a lot of the harder issues. And so I think those are ones that are just kind of dotting the I's and crossing the T's, but we worked through a lot of issues, and I think the city has really helped us to create an amazing project.
All right. Excellent. Anything else you'd like to add to the staff report?
I can answer your question about the delivery stuff. We have created inside the parking structures places where there'll be places by the elevators where there are reserved stalls for people to come in and move out, because that's one of the things we have to deal with quite a bit.
Yeah, will they be able to get full-size moving trucks in?
Mostly people have been moving in with their own stuff. Moving trucks will be on the street.
Okay.
But we've had created for people who are moving their stuff in and out with their trucks to get in and stuff.
Perfect.
Any other questions I can answer for you guys at all?
I do have a few questions.
Okay.
One of the required elements is a central feature, and I'm just going to read what it says. It says a prominent centrally located feature such as a park, plaza, or other gathering place. I'm not going to read the rest, but convince me that that's what you've provided, because I'm not sure you have. I can tell you my feelings.
Okay.
My feelings are it's not centrally located, the two locations. I wouldn't feel comfortable, I don't think, as a non-resident to walk up a staircase to a place that you can't, it looks like you can't even see the terrace up there, or it's kind of blocked.
Yeah, the idea
And
is
so I saw you had a sign that said, come on up, but I still don't think if I'm walking around, I would think, oh, look, public gathering place.
well, the idea is that those areas are extensions of the retail. So if I'm down there and have a restaurant, there'll be dining up there. There'll be places people can have coffee and eat and those kind of things. So we see the retail expanding up there. But we see there's going to be, 375 units here. We see there'll probably be 800 plus residents that'll be using all this space, and then their friends and families. And then we see that the community will want to come to these spaces because we'll have nice restaurants and nice places to hang out. So we've tried to create, it's kind of an urban environment where it's kind of a resort feeling. So like if you were at the Four Seasons, there's kind of a resort feeling. So that's the idea, is that the plazas and the podium spaces become kind of this amenity space that's more urban. There's like fire pits and barbecue areas and hangout areas. And so we feel that everyone will be comfortable going up there and just being part of it, because it's they're outdoor urban spaces. I'm talking about, and Brandon can talk more about it, but there's like gazebos and sitting areas. And I just went to one in California at the Radisson Blu Hotel. The whole top floor is just this hangout space where you just kind of sat there and talked to people. Food could be served. And it's just a place where people gather and spend time together with each other. So that's kind of the idea of creating these spaces that are more urban than a central fountain or a central grassy area. It's more of an urban gathering spots. And so, Brandon, if you want to talk about that a little bit, Brandon's our one that does all these urban desktop restoration. These areas are pretty cool. I need to state my name.
Yes, please.
So my name's Brandon Reed. I'm the founder of Loft 64. We're landscape architects. I guess to kind of go on that, the thought of these spaces is that we want to create something that's compelling. So that's been the question the whole time. Why would we even create a space like this if no one wants to be there? So the thought was, we're creating outdoor experiences for people. Number one, obviously the residents that will be living here, their friends and family that will be coming here. So every space that we've looked at, especially on these podium decks, there's a real kind of art to creating spaces that people want to be in, people love, and places that matter. So part of the restaurant, part of the retail is obviously going to help drive a lot of that traffic there. And hopefully it's just going to be a place where as residents live there, it's a space that they just love, right? They're going to be talking about it. They're going to be feeling good about it. It's going to make Murray look amazing by having just a really great community embedded into it. That's been the plan, at least.
I think my concern is, I think the space will be great. I mean, I've been in spaces like that. The concern is, this requirement talks about encouraging public use for that space. And so that's where I'm getting hung up with that is, I agree, the residents probably will be using it. But how is the public going to know about this? It's a great big building. It's a little teeny staircase that maybe they, gets lost in this great big building. So that's my concern. The other question I had was the pool. Is that, I'm assuming that's for residents only, but that is attached to these public spaces. So how are you separating those two so the public doesn't feel like if they go to these spaces that they're looking through the glass?
They're a voyeur into the pool area. Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. I would just say, obviously, fencing, we're going to have that secured anyway, right? With some kind of 6 foot high security fencing. I think just how we do that transparency between the two. And then we have designed fire pits and some things up on the edge. So you're kind of on the edge using the space for more of the public accessibility. and then the pool space would be more privatized. Obviously, signage and just how the project is how we manage expectations, obviously, when this whole thing is being built, is the lease up, all that kind of stuff. I think it's going to be some rules that need to be set, obviously, so the public does feel comfortable. But at least in our experience in working in a lot of downtown projects where they have this public accessibility requirement, is it tends to be, most people wouldn't feel comfortable anyway to come up to those spaces unless they have a reason to, right? So it sounds like you might be asking too, like, what are the reasons that would make a compelling argument why someone would feel comfortable coming up there? And I think a couple of those reasons would be, there needs to be some kind of purpose with the restaurants, the retail. As you're coming into there, I don't generally think most people would want to just kind of wander into an apartment community anyway. So part of that is, how do we make them feel comfortable, would be what Jory kind of alluded to, is the restaurants, the retail, bringing in, tenants that are going to, number one, almost be an amenity within the community. So these amenities could be focused also on these 800 people that will be living here. Is it a barber shop? Is it a cool restaurant? Is it a cafe that they can come and engage on a daily basis? That almost these things could be supported by this community in itself. It could be a community within the community, would be one way where people feel comfortable. And obviously, as the word gets out, if this place is done right, people should want to kind of come here because they're hearing about it. Like, you might not feel comfortable on the first try if you just wandered in, but if your friend said, hey, you got to come hang out at this restaurant at 4800 Lofts, it's amazing. They've got this cool rooftop deck. They've got, the staircase that we did do is quite grand, actually, when you look at it. It's huge. And it's going up 10, 15, 20 feet in the air, So we've tried to really make it a comfortable space with the use of plantings also. One thing that we haven't really touched on, the focus has been on the podium, but there are spaces at ground level that we could definitely, I think, use to our advantage, as part of that whole public accessibility. There could be just how we design those spaces could be also as engaging as the podium, even if it's a smaller space, but having some of these, there are a few of those areas that could be used for that. And I think that would be the plan.
Let me just ask two more questions.
Sure.
Is it going to be wheelchair accessible for the public?
Definitely. Yeah, and I would even use this term. I prefer this term, ADA friendly.
Okay.
So we take the approach of design where if someone's in a wheelchair, they're going to feel less like, oh, there's the ramp for me to go up. It's going to be, hey, here's, just a nice route that feels like anyone else would use. The way we would design any ramps would be a feeling. I don't know if any of you have been to Disneyland, but it's a favorite place of mine.
Universal.
My family's more, I should say that.
So universal design.
What's that?
Some universal design.
Exactly. Universal design. But the way I think about friendly is that it doesn't feel like universal design. It just feels integrated to the whole space. The experience of a ramp is like at Disneyland, they design them less than 5% so that it feels less like there's all the railing and all the different things that come with that. So that would be the approach. So it definitely is friendly.
So how do they get to that tier if there's a staircase that I can see? Is it?
There'll be an elevator inside the building that goes up. And then if you look at the squares,
That's in the retail space, is that
retail
correct?
spaces, an elevator goes up for the handicap. But then once we get to these spaces, they kind of transition. Brandon's really been really gifted at the transitions are very light, and the transitions come with ramps, so it feels like it's not ADA accessible, but it is. And he's done. We've probably done how many of these? And what I try to explain the thought process is, once you go there and people start talking about it, there becomes a buzz, and people say, I want to go to the brunch there, and I want to sit at that cool little table that had that funky little chess set on it, and I want to sit there, and the buzz happens. It becomes a piece that gathers, people want to come to it. And for us, it's two things. It brings the residents, and we get the place full of people that really want to be there. We have found that these kind of amenities, these kind of spaces, people are willing to live in a less square footage if they can have these nice amenity spaces around them that enhance their lives. And so we think it's going to be a really benefit for the residents, but also for the community, because people are going to say, "Hey, you got to come see this. This is so cool the way this is done. Look, I got a small little apartment, but I got this cool other spaces that I get to enjoy." On one of the upper decks above the one is a 4-sided big TV area where you can come watch football games and sitting there. I mean, just things we're doing that really make people want to come be there. I think you ask how they know, there becomes a buzz when we do this, and people just start talking about it, and they become places people want to be.
Okay, I think this is my last question. I'm not going to promise, but so we talked in the pre-meeting about adding a condition to clearly mark that these areas are for public use. Would you have an issue with that, or are you okay?
No, we want that. No, we want that. Definitely. It's going to make us better. It's going to make our retailers better. That's one of the concerns about this, is bringing the retailers in and have the retailers be successful. And so if we don't bring the right retailers in and make them successful, we're going to have 18,000 square feet of empty space that's not going to be very pretty. So that's really important, that we want to really advertise the community, pull the community in, look at these great retailers, bring an R&R barbecue in, bring some cool places in that are really good food, and then people will happen to come to it. That's what we believe.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So can I go back to retail spaces then for a minute? So we talk about the public amenity, and you also talk about restaurants. So you see outdoor seating. So is it really a public amenity, or is it just seating for the restaurant?
No, it's public amenity, because you can go up there if you're not eating too. You can go up there and just hang out. There'll be barbecue pits, there's fire pits. I mean, you can go up there and just sit and talk with your friends, and hey, come over. We're going to meet you guys down at the fire pit, down by that left area there. We're going to meet there. So it's not going to be exclusively the restaurants to say, oh, these are ours, you guys can't use these. But I think the restaurant will also use them. It'll be a benefit for the restaurant and for everybody else. That's the
Okay, so
concept.
if you had a restaurateur come in and say, hey, listen, we want to do this restaurant, but we've got to have that rooftop deck for us.
Won't work.
Okay.
Other thoughts?
I think it might be this maybe isn't within our purview, but I think that it would be a good idea to talk about your square footage. I mean, 338 square feet for a studio apartment is very small. How is that? How is that going to work over the long run? What do these projects look like?
Well, I'll give you an example. Right now, I'm doing, where the Cottonwood Mall used to be? I'm doing the Cottonwood Mall site. I'm doing the first building, Block D is the first building. And in that area, we have 350, 400 square foot studio apartments. It's because of the amenities. And a lot of people want to live by themselves, have their own space, but they want to not pay for a 3-bedroom or 2-bedroom, but they want to have some space, but they want to be able to go out and sit in the plaza and sit and read and go by the pool and go over to the reading areas in the place. And so we're learning that people don't really want to pay for a lot of extra space if we give them all these other places they can go. And we find that it really works really, really well. So the studios are becoming very, very popular. It's one of the bigger things that we're finding. Matter of fact, I was really surprised, Holiday Hills at Cottonwood Mall site, we have like 30% studios. But they really feel that that's really going to be a draw, because it's going to bring people in that want this kind of lifestyle.
I have two things. One is I drive Galleria Drive and 4800 South daily and know the power corridor lines on those facilities. Have you anticipated or considered putting those underground? And I don't know if Murray City owns those lines, or if those are maybe there's some public-private partnership to underground those lines.
It's extremely expensive.
And they're going to look like not good in front of those gorgeous buildings.
You can kind of see where we've kind of let the lower part of the building be parking structure, because that's where the freeway is. So we've tried to keep the upper building where you're really going to see it from the freeway. But yeah, we deal with it all the time. We would love a partnership. Let's figure out how to get rid of them.
We'll talk to the city.
Well, and the power department, I mean, in fairness, the power department's been really resistant to it. Over at Murray Crossing, that was an issue that came up, and the power department said, no, we're not willing to do anything with it. So,
it's very expensive, and it's also the maintenance of it's a lot more.
And my second last question is phasing and schedules. Can you talk just a little bit about
I think it's going to be market driven, but for first phase will be the blue building will be first phase, and the retail building on the corner is first phase. Second building will be the larger building with the clubhouse building. We're hoping to go blow and go. We're seeing a huge need for apartments right now, and we're seeing a need for higher end apartments. I just did all the stuff over there by the Jordan High School, and filled them up. They said their average income was like $120,000 a year, and they filled them up in days. So there's a people are saying, a lot of people are saying, I don't want to buy a home. Homes aren't really increasing in value. I want to have flexibility. I want to be able to travel more. I want to do other things. So people are saying, gosh, I want to live in a cool place and then travel. And so the thing about this is having secure parking. These things all become people that want to have more of a fluid lifestyle where they can travel more. So I think it's going to be pretty, so it'll be market driven, but I think it'll go pretty quickly. And the goal is to build it out very quickly.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? All right, so we'll open the public comment, and if there's some questions that staff can't answer, we'll bring you back up.
Great, thank you very much.
All right, thank you. All right, I will open this agenda up for public comment. I guess I'll first ask if staff's gotten any public comment.
We have a few emails.
Should we do those first?
I don't care. If you want to see if anybody's here to speak.
Is anyone here to speak? All right, couple, two. Why don't we do those first? Why don't you come up individually and state your name and your address for the record?
My name is Teddy Wardle. I live at 393 West, 4800 South, which is right behind this brown building to the north of there. In fact, our fence line is their fence line. And that was one thing that I was kind of concerned about, was wondering what are they going to do about the drainage problem there, because they've raised it so high that they're above my 6-foot chain link fence. So if they put their building up that high or whatever, they're going to be flooding my house. Also, I was just kind of concerned that 48 South is going to be big enough to handle all the traffic that they're talking about pulling in there, because it's only one lane each way, and I don't know that that's going to be. I mean, it's going to take me a half hour to get out of my driveway. That's basically the two problems that I was concerned with.
All right. Excellent. Thank you very much. All right.
Good evening. My name is Jason Tyson. I live at 4769 South Box Elder Street, which is just east of there, but 4800 South is one of my main routes throughout the whole valley. My concern is with traffic that kind of a unit's going to bring, because the lights on 4800 South are horrible. The one on Commerce Drive never goes the right way. It stops with cars coming and goes with cars not coming. And also on Box Elder Street, with the new structure put up just west of Box Elder Street, the great big townhomes that are 3 levels, and then the brick building out by the new firehouse and the new firehouse. It's a huge traffic congestion problem there with our driveway, or I'm sorry, their drive out way and Box Elder, plus all this traffic from tracks and the light rail line. And with the new stuff going in for the city building, with the new roads that are going in there, I'm not going to be able to get out of 4800 South without like sitting there for 5 to 10 minutes. During rush hour, it's you go a different way. You can't even turn left. And plus, with all the bar traffic parked on the street there that's not enforced by the police, parked in front of the Ice House and Club 48 on both sides of the road, you can't see if you're trying to cross 48 on Box Elder from either the north or the south. So my concern is the traffic problem and congestion, and if there's going to be some resolve for that. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Anyone else here want to make public comment? All right, Jared.
I will go ahead and read the emails that we received. We did receive 3, I believe. This first one is, we got another? Okay. I'll read the first 3 we have and then the brand new one. Okay. First one is from Bonnie McAllister with, I believe this is with Salt Lake County with flood control. It just says, hello, I'm reaching out in response to the request for comments regarding the proposed developments at 467 West 4800 South. Number 1, the proposed project will require a Salt Lake County flood control permit for any work within 20 feet of the top of bank of Little Cottonwood, which borders the subject property to the south. Number 2, a county flood control permit will also be required if any discharge into Little Cottonwood Creek is proposed. Number 3, Salt Lake County will also want to maintain access to the creek for maintenance and emergency flood control activities. This is typically accomplished via an easement of 20 feet from the top of bank. Thank you. We also have a comment from Jerry Burton about the project. I don't have an address. I'm sorry. It just says comments regarding 4800 Lofts master site plan approval. As a business located in close proximity to the proposed mixed-use development, we have concerns about parking and traffic. It appears that there are very few designated parking spaces for this size of a development. At the time our business moved into Murray City, we were required to have 20 parking spaces for commercial use of property of approximately 15,000 square feet. Have parking code requirements changed, or is an exception being made? Adding to the concern is the 371 residential units. 4800 South cannot accommodate on-street parking without a severe impact to traffic. We are impacted by previous developments of this nature in Murray, where the streets are lined on both sides by residents' vehicles as there is insufficient parking allotted for their use. It is unreasonable to assume that every resident will be utilizing tracks or have only one vehicle per dwelling. Guest parking also needs to be taken into account. We are already seeing an increase in business overflow parking lining 4800 South, adding to traffic congestion. We would ask that Murray City Planning Commission remain consistent in its requirements for new developments and consider the impact this will have on current businesses and residents. Respectfully, Cabinet Innovations, Scott Burton. And let's see, have one more previous email and then I'll read the new one. This email is from Stephen Schaefermeyer. Again, I don't have an address, I apologize. Dear Commissioners, I think it is safe to say most Murray residents have no idea how much time the Planning Commission and staff dedicate to trying to keep Murray a wonderful place to live. Thank you is not something you hear much during public comment, so I wanted to make sure you heard it from me. Thank you. I am concerned about the 4800 Lofts project. I believe what is planned is too intense for the location, particularly when you consider what will eventually be approved to the south. I-15 is a mental and physical barrier, especially at this location, that keeps most people from accessing front runner and tracks except by car. It is not comfortable or convenient to access the rail stations from this location except by car. For this reason, I think using the distance from the rail stations as a justification to allow greater densities west of I-15 is unwarranted. The city made some much needed changes to the mixed-use zones, and it is a shame that this project will not conform to those new standards. But before you accept that as true, I hope the Commission will ask staff for more information about the application. For example, what plans and information does Murray's code require for a conditional use permit and master site plan application to be considered complete and therefore vested? What is the date that the applicant submitted a complete application? Presumably that date was in October 2020, but the staff report does not state the exact date, and the documents included with staff report are unlikely to be the originally submitted documents since there have been revisions to the plan. Mr. Smallwood has written a comprehensive staff report, and I appreciate his thoroughness. I do think, however, that to assert that an application is vested under old rules, staff needs to provide a clearer analysis of how they came to this conclusion. Assuming the project is vested, I would like more details about the retail commercial portions of the project. Given the location, what about how the commercial spaces are designed will help make them successful? What experience does the applicant have, or what strategies will they use to ensure that the commercial portions of the project will be successful? What requirements can or will be included in the subsequent MOU, that's Memorandum of Understanding, to ensure success of the commercial components for this project? Again, I appreciate the Planning Commission's efforts and scrutiny of this project. I hope the staff will continue to work with the applicant to ensure compliance with all code requirements and conditions of approval. If built, this project will change this area dramatically and set the tone for future development. I appreciate all efforts to make sure it is done right. Respectfully, Stephen Schaefermeyer. And finally, you're going to have to unlock your iPhone. We don't have any music to play while Zach unlocks the iPhone, so we'll just just the face? Okay. So I was the wrong face. This is from Kathy Archuleta, right? Kathy Archuleta, the property manager at Hunters Woods Apartments. Hunters Woods Apartments would like to oppose the approval of the 4800 Lofts plan, as we are very familiar with the traffic along 4800 South and 500 West currently, and feel that adding 371 more dwellings along with additional businesses would make the current congestion even worse. 4800 South is a small 2-lane road. It cannot handle the additional traffic, especially during early morning or rush hour 5 o'clock traffic. Also, having a semi-high rise is going to block views from across I-15 to the mountains for several established residents. Thank you, Kathy Archuleta. And that's all we have.
Nothing else came in from anywhere else? All right. Well, I'll close public comment and have Zach answer some of these questions that we heard. And if we need to bring Mr. Walker back up or Mr. Reed, we can ask them to
Yeah, so
fill in some blanks.
I'll kind of go reverse order. So one of the things that was brought up was the question of vesting. We kind of talked about that in the pre-meeting, but I'll go through it a little bit here. And I kind of went through it in my presentation as well. They submitted an application, a first application in 2019. That was for a concept review. And then later in 2020, they submitted for the conditional use and master site plan approval. They did submit plans, complete plans, everything that is required for a review. And as was mentioned in the pre-meeting, there were multiple times where I've actually scheduled the meeting to be heard on a planning commission. And then as I'm writing the staff report, I come up with something, and I'm sure this is very frustrating to the applicants that I've done it probably 3 times, where I email them on a Thursday night when packets are supposed to go out and say, sorry, you're off the agenda, because there's something missing. So I've done that multiple times. So there's been iterative processes here. So they are in fact vested under state law. A complete application was accepted. We took payment for the application. So that's that.
Zach, when you're talking about vested, can you also talk a little bit about compliance with codes?
What do you mean?
Well, with that being vested, does this property, the way it's zoned and what the applicant is proposing for it, does it comply?
Yeah, and that's yes. If it hadn't met all the code, all the requirements laid out in the code that they were vested under, we would not have brought it before this commission tonight. That's one of the main things that, and that's usually why I would be ripping them off the agenda at the last minute. I would calculate something, and there was something either was missing or something along those lines that we needed to get corrected. So yes, to answer your question, they do meet all the codes and regulations. So that kind of goes back to the parking requirements that were spoken about across the street from 4800 South is our MG, which is our manufacturing district. They do have different parking requirements than what would be required for the mixed use zone at that time. So yes, there is a possibility that would be required to have more parking than what would be required in this mixed use development. Rush hour traffic, the engineering planning division, we do understand that there is traffic congestion along 5th West. Between Vine and 4800 South, that can get kind of hairy for a little bit. But I think as you're going north from 48th to 45th, I don't see the traffic impacts there. And I will caveat that as one of the conditions does require by the engineer, excuse me, let's see, it is...
Is it J?
Yes. So letter J under condition 1 is to provide a UDOT level 2 traffic impact study and implement recommendations. So that's going to be the applicants working with the engineering division, with the planning division to implement any sort of traffic calming, anything that's required as part of that level 2 traffic impact study.
Can I put you on the spot with that?
Oh dear.
Yeah, no, you'll be fine. Can you talk to me about the city's recently adopted transportation master plan and how it's looked at this area specifically, and what they're doing to recognize some of the developments that are potentially coming into this area?
Yeah, and they are, you'll forgive me for not knowing exactly the ins and outs of the transportation master plan, but yes, this was given to the consultants because it had been vested at this point when they were going through the transportation master plan. So they knew this project was coming. They knew the densities that it could get up to, and they were able to address that in the transportation master plan. It is going to be part of their mitigation.
It's part of their phase one mitigation.
Phase one,
to look
right.
at signalization and timing of the signal. Sorry, Zach, I'm just going to.
Please, you were much more familiar
I was
with
more
it.
intimately involved with the master transportation plan. 5th West was an enormous concern. 7th West, 5th West, Riverside, Murray Boulevard, whatever you
All of
want to
those
call
things.
that string of traffic. That was a very big concern in the master transportation plan, and the effects of these 371 units were included when they looked at that,
as well as other projects.
as well as other projects, and 4800 South as well. 4800 South is, with that said, a major collector that's headed toward minor arterial. And when the improvements are done after phase 2 of the master transportation plan, it'll be a minor arterial and more signalized, and the signals timed better. So some of those issues that you face further up 4800 South of Box Elder and other places, I don't know how bad they are outside of the worst times for traffic, but they should be better with signal controls and signal timing. I think you mentioned some of the bad signal timing that should be getting addressed in those phase 1 changes.
And then I will go to the drainage question. I probably will defer that to the applicant. I believe that they are planning on putting some fencing around there, engineering is aware. We did receive utility plans, grading and drainage plans that the city engineer has reviewed. But that is something that I will keep an eye out as well. Make sure that that's draining appropriately, and it should be draining more towards the creek as opposed to the neighbor's property to the north. So we will be looking at that and keeping that in mind as well. And the city engineer is very aware of that kind of stuff as well.
Hey, speaking of the creek, can I ask a question about
Please.
Is there any reason why we did not try to further extend a trail system utilizing proximity to the...
Yes, because that will be coming with any Galleria potential
So it
development.
will be on the south side?
Yeah,
Okay.
it will be on the south side. Since we've started, if you remember, we approved those townhomes on the other side of 5th West, and it kind of started it on the south side. So the south side's where it's now going to go.
Okay.
So I think I've addressed everything.
I just have a question about the comment from and I can't remember who it was, Salt Lake County, somebody.
Sure.
Flood control.
The flood control and about all those regulations and rules she's talking about. I mean,
Yep.
have you talked about that? I mean, I don't think
That's-
there's any conditions in here. Or,
It's going to be part of engineering's requirements. We knew ahead of time that flood control was going to require permitting for this, being right next to the creek. So it's not something that wasn't unexpected. So engineering is aware of it, and it will be addressed.
so you don't think we need to condition that at all?
No, because it's county supersedes. So
Okay.
any follow-up questions to anything?
Anything else? Would, Ms. Rocket, do you want to talk at all about, I guess maybe, we probably talked about traffic enough. I'm probably maybe a little more concerned about drainage as well off of that site into
And I might
areas.
suggest talking a little bit about parking. I did some quick math because I'm usually the guy that worries about parking. So maybe talk about your parking plan. Might be a good idea to do that in the public.
I think we're hoping that we're going to have enough parking. We think we from what we've seen from our other projects we've done, this is the parking is where it needs to be. There's two reasons. First of all, we're trying to force people not to need cars as much, and so they're in the design world and how cities are entitling projects when they're close to light rail projects. They're trying to incentivize them to use light rail. So I think we'll do some of that with our designing. And then also I think just having the limited parking will also incentivize that. And so it will either impact us on our renting, or we're going to have to incentivize our tenants to use light rail and other aspects. And that's kind of what all these developments are doing. They're incentivizing their people to use other means and methods of transportation to kind of change how we think. I mean, in my neighborhood, drive my car to the neighbor's house 2 houses down, and we're trying to change that thinking.
That being said, I mean, when you look at the number of bedrooms you have 426 bedrooms in essence, but you have 472 parking spots. 43 of them, I believe, are set aside for commercial. So you still have, I mean,
We have a lot of parking.
yeah, I mean, there's still,
I'm parking projects. Ones that are
right.
downtown are half this amount of parking. So there's a very, we are parking very, the code here requires us to have more parking than other transit-oriented development parking is required.
And so I think it's, with some of the comments, it's probably a good idea to walk through that math. I mean, there are 426 bedrooms per se, or
Right.
places where, and
we
you
have
have
471 stalls.
right. And so, and it seems like what we don't want to see is a bunch of people parking out on 4800 South, and it doesn't appear to be a risk at this point.
The way your parking code works and the way you guys have it written, this is one of the highest parked developments that I've designed in the last 2 years.
Thank you very much.
The owners weren't real happy about that.
Right.
$15,000 a stall. That's
Sure.
Those numbers we're talking about, that includes the commercial space as well?
Yes, there's 45 stalls. for the
43 are
commercial,
designed for
and then
commercial.
there's- So we pretty much have one stall for each bed, pretty much.
I'd just like to make a comment that I think the Murray citizens are very aware that designing properties with less parking does not make people not drive their car. It makes them park on the roads.
I agree. It's one of those things that, as a designer, as an architect, you work in these different areas, and the closer you get to light rail, the more UTA wants to pound you to force people to get on their trains. So it's a tricky balance.
Yeah, you actually have 2 more parking stalls
Beds.
than beds. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so we're very well parked for this project. And then I have my civil engineer is here who's doing the civil engineering. And if Paul would like to just address the drainage issues and what we're doing there, it'd probably be better than me because he's
Excellent.
probably better.
Perfect.
So this is Paul Fieser.
He's going to have to state his name and place of residence first.
Yes, Paul Fieser, 1001 South Arbor Way, Layton, Utah. Work for SC Science. I'm a civil engineer in the project. Happy to be here. And I guess there's 2 questions on it. One was the email from Bonnie McAllister with the Salt Lake County Flood Control. We work with her on multiple projects. It's just a standard process. We will be outfalling into the creek. The natural lay of the land does flow to the south. And so we're going to utilize that. We have a subsurface detention basin in the parking lot on the south end of the project. They're wonderful units. They're high end, but they are very effective and they work well. And they had environmental aspects to it to be low impact. And then one of the residences, I'm sorry, I forgot your name, but I'd like to get it afterwards. You had some concerns about some drainage coming across.
They're like 6 feet higher. I mean, they're higher than my 6-foot chain link fence in the back.
Yes, and you're talking about the podium level?
No, I'm just talking about the dirt that they have.
Oh, the dirt?
Is-
Yeah, we're going to grade that out. And with your permission, I'd like to maybe meet with you afterwards and maybe look at your site and see if there's something we can do to accommodate it.
So I was just wondering if they're going to put a retaining wall with fence on top of it, or are they just going to put a fence in where the chain link fence is now? Because that's pretty low. for what they're-
Yeah, we have to talk about it. And we do have some depth to work with to make sure that's drained properly. We don't want a pond on the north side of our building. So yeah, we'd love to address
All
that,
good.
take care of that, and
No
make
pond.
sure that we probably wouldn't be able to accommodate her detention into our facility, but we could use it as a bypass. So if like as an overflow for if you are in a situation where you do have some ponding back there, we could probably take that flow and bypass it through our site. And so that it wouldn't flood. So we'd have to look at the elevations, but that would take some further investigation. But I think we can accommodate that. Yeah. So, yeah, make sure I don't. Correct.
So that 6 feet of elevation is going to come with the dirt.
Is that going to be the level?
I think you gotta have him talking in the mic.
Yeah. How about if can we have that conversation with you and the Wardells offline?
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
And we'll
okay.
probably involve city engineering as well. But I think we have some room to, I don't know about this exact elevations. I need to bring some equipment out there just to double check, but I think we can accommodate you. Yeah, we want to make sure that we don't have any ponding on the north side of the building because that would be detrimental to the foundations anyways. So, yeah, we'll get in touch with you. Yeah, thank you, though.
So your retention pond at the south end of the parking lot, where does that end up draining?
That will outfall into the creek.
Into the creek? Okay.
It's actually the historical path of the surface water anyways. We will just be detaining it in the amount of hard surface that we are adding to the site, which is substantial, but then it'll all outfall in the same place.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Other questions, concerns, thoughts? Then I will entertain a motion.
I guess before we make the motion, I just want to talk about
Signage?
what I'm going to say. Because I'm going to add a condition here.
Okay.
I want to make sure that we can discuss it before I do it. I was thinking about just saying maintain signage that clearly marks the public areas.
So-
are we okay with that, or we want to say
I
something?
was going to actually include it as part of the memorandum of understanding. So I have memorandum of understanding must include prominent wayfinding signage to public amenities.
I'm okay with you doing it.
Okay. Okay.
Mr. Nay, I like how you said that. Is that the way you worded it sounds like to include the signage. So should there also be something that says include the signage that makes clear this is a public space? And is it?
I think that yeah,
that
when
is clear. Okay.
and yeah, I think because it's in the memorandum of understanding, they want to understand what we're talking about. So I think that they'll take care of it.
Okay.
I think right before you do this too, I just had this thought. I know that I had multiple people mention this where we're putting high density housing and everything. And I just want people to understand that this is what this is zoned for and they're meeting all the requirements. And that's why, we're just looking over that kind of stuff. We don't get to decide, if this is going to be single family homes or the high density apartments.
Yeah, this zoning was established
point.
more than 10 years ago.
Yeah.
This is longstanding. So if you're fine, Mr. Chair,
All right.
I'll make a motion.
Yes, please.
I will make a motion that the Planning Commission approve the master site plan to allow the construction of a new mixed-use project on the properties addressed 380 West, 4850 South, and 447 West, 4800 South, subject to conditions 1 through 9 as written, with the addition of condition 10 stating that the memorandum of understanding must include prominent wayfinding signage to the public amenities.
All right. I have a motion, which includes an additional condition. Is there a second?
I can second it. I'll
All
second
right,
it.
a motion to second. Any other discussion? All right. Zach, would you please take a vote?
Commissioner Ney,
Yes.
Commissioner Lowry,
Yes.
Commissioner Milkevich,
Yes.
Commissioner Pearson,
Yes.
and Vice Chair Hacker.
Yes. So congratulations to you and wish you best of luck. I'll be driving past that frequently, both on Germain or on Galleria and on 48th. So we'll watch construction with bated breath. All right. Thank you. All right. We'll move on to agenda item number 6, text amendment. And I'm not going to read it all for you, Susan, so you'll have to read that. But it's a land use text amendment for health services and radio pharmaceutical manufacturing and production. You're on.
Okay, thank you. So yes, this is a text amendment for our land use code and also an addition of a new standard land use category for radiopharmaceutical manufacturing and products. We've designated a new land use code of 2834, and the application is being made on behalf of IHC Health Services in conjunction with PharmaLogic, a third-party entity. When we first got this application, I have to say we were a little nervous about it. And so as staff, we have met with these folks several times, and our stress level has come way down. And hopefully we can reflect that to the Planning Commission also, and eventually the City Council. So this is a public hearing. The Planning Commission is an advisory board to the City Council. They will review it. They make a recommendation based on our staff report and input. And then another public hearing will be held in the future with the City Council. That date has not been determined at this point, but probably a month or two. So when we first got the application, it was to amend Land Use Code 2833. Now, for those of you who don't know our standard land use code, it is a numeric system that we assign numbers to a land use. So, I'll go to this page. So, for instance,
the Book of the Dead. So you know.
So, some of the categories are broader categories, some are very specialized. For instance, as you can see up here, the existing land use number definition, we have a 2800 category that is chemicals and allied products, general category, and under there are several other special items and more detailed ones. And so at the bottom, you see 2833 was the existing use of pharmaceutical preparations, which includes analgesics, anesthetics, antacids, cold remedies, soap, etc. A very general, broad category. So after meeting with the applicants, we talked them into possibly, we jointly agreed that it would be a good idea to have a specific category for this specific use, because this is very specialized and very limited basis. There will be very limited entities who would qualify for this. So radiopharmaceuticals or medicinal radiocompounds are a group of pharmaceutical drugs containing radioactive isotopes. Radiopharmaceuticals can be used as a diagnostic and therapeutic agents. The proposed land use number, as I said before, is 2834, and the definition is as follows. Radiopharmaceutical manufacturing preparations, meaning an entity that is engaged in manufacturing, preparing, propagating, compounding, practice of pharmacy, processing, packaging, repackaging, or labeling of pharmaceutical drugs containing radioactive isotopes. Just my disclaimer here, I'm trying to explain radiopharmaceuticals 101 on a condensed, abbreviated version, the rookie style, so forgive me if I say anything wrong. They will clarify after I'm done. So let's talk about regulation and oversight for just a minute. Radiopharmaceutical activity is regulated heavily on a federal level and state level. It is regulated by the FDA, the DOT, Department of Transportation, Nuclear Regulatory, can't even say these words, let alone, the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, and on a state level, both the Board of Pharmacy and the Utah Department of Environmental Quality, and there's probably others. So it is highly regulated. The manufacturing of positron emission tomography, or PET, is radiopharmaceuticals are performed in a cyclotron, did I say that right? Cyclotron radiochemistry lab, or a vault. PET is a diagnostic technique in which computer-assisted X-rays are used to track a radioactive substance inside a patient's body. The radiopharmacy is staffed by trained nuclear physicists. Heavy on that. It is very specialized. Very few companies would qualify for this. The facility would also allow for distribution of PET, and radiopharmaceuticals are compounded specifically for patients in hospitals and clinics in the Intermountain region. So why the request, the reasons for the request? Access to radiopharmaceuticals is necessary to diagnose and treat prostate cancer, also other ones, breast cancer, I think thyroid cancer, and also helps diagnose Alzheimer's disease, and there's probably other ones. There are currently 3 radiopharmacies located in Utah, and currently there is a cyclotron at the Human Cancer Clinic here in the Valley, but they are not capable and are not able to produce these newer upcoming drugs. So none of the existing facilities are capable of producing these non-invasive cardiac imaging short drugs with a very short lifespan. Very short life, very short shelf life, from days to minutes, literally. So proximity is critical to have a location close to where it is given to the patients. And I can explain the reasons why specific site they have in mind. Typically, when we talk about land use amendments and zone changes, et cetera, we don't talk specific sites, but I will refer to a site because it is critical for this particular use. But again, we're not looking at a site. It is for the land use text amendment and the addition of this new land use. So if this is approved, the applicants will come back and they will propose a project intended to be FDA-regulated facility with licensed pharmacy in the state of Utah. And again, we'll have to meet federal and state regulations. Originally, when the application came in, they were wanting to just add the one category and add it as a permitted use in our general office zone. And after talking with them, we, as staff, recommended that we also include the H hospital zone and our CD commercial zone and also our professional office zone. The reasons for this is the location they have in mind is at 383 West Vine. That is in our general office zone. It is in close proximity to Intermountain Medical Center, which is where they would treat the patients. I understand that right. So proximity, close proximity is critical. The current zoning there, as I said, is GO. The future land use plan is for professional offices. IMC campus is in our CD zone, and the Tosh Clinic that's on Fashion Boulevard and 5859 South is in our hospital zone. So it only makes sense that we include those other zoning districts for this specific use. Again, it's such a specialized field and use that chances are we're not going to get inundated with applications similar to this. Currently, the broad category, again, the 2800 category, is currently allowed as a permitted use in our BP business park zone and as a conditional use in our MG manufacturing zone. So if this is approved, it would also be allowed in those zones that it currently allows, because it's under the broader category, if that makes sense. Okay, so we have the experts here that they have a PowerPoint, and they will present that after I am done at the conclusion here. Text amendments, I don't know if I stated this before, are for citywide. They are for all properties in all the proposed zones. So this use would be, if approved, would be allowed in the GO, the H, the CD, and the PO zones. And let me see if I missed anything here. One of our concerns as staff was safety, of course. The risk and safety, and what is the liability that's going to put on the city by having this in our community. So after we listened to their presentation and kind of went through all that, we felt much more comfortable about it. And I also happened to check with our chief building official to say, hey, what do you think about this? What if it went into this building on Vine Street? And he actually said, worst case scenario, if this use was classified as an H hazardous, which it won't be, but worst case scenario, he said this particular building would still be good for that because of the distance, the good distance it is from other structures in that area. So that helped us feel a little more comfortable with this. So based on all the studies and researching and talking with these folks, staff is recommending that the Planning Commission send a positive or an approval to the City Council for the proposed text amendment, and the sections are 17-144-020, which is our GO zone, sections 17-148-020, which is the hospital zone, 17-160-020, the commercial CD zone, and 17-174-020, the professional office. And also that we include a new land use category, 2834, radio pharmaceutical manufacturing preparations, based on, go back to that definition, adding that to our standard land use code. And I am happy to answer any questions if I may. And we have here with us tonight Jason Argyle, Stephen Holbrook, Ashley, and Lisa Sanford. And then I've been working a lot with Brenda Roberts for probably about a year, it seems like, on this. So they're your experts, but I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Anybody have any questions for Susan? No. All right. We're going to have the experts come up. Sorry.
Okay.
All right. Applicant.
So.
If you say your name and your address for the record.
Sure.
If you have questions.
I got it.
Okay,
Thanks.
great.
Hi, I'm Ashley Mishu. Do you need my address? I don't live in Utah, but I can give it to you.
You can give your employer.
Sure. 433 Plaza Real in Boca Raton, Florida. My name is Ashley Mishu. I am a nuclear pharmacist by training, and I am the Vice President of Quality Assurance and Regulatory Affairs for PharmaLogic. We are really excited for the opportunity to hopefully bring some really cool new drugs to this area. And so I'm happy to explain what radiopharmaceuticals are and what we're all about. I can, you see our mission and vision here. I can talk to you about it, but basically what everybody wants to know is, what is it that we do? And at the end of the day, we make drugs. That's what we do. We make specifically good drugs. We make really good drugs. They are radioactive drugs, and they are used to diagnose and treat diseases, primarily used in oncology, but also used in cardiovascular disease as well as neurology, like Alzheimer's. These are all sterile injectable products that are administered by a physician in either a hospital or a clinic. We're talking about teeny tiny doses, no bigger than your COVID vaccine. So very small sterile injectables. And as she mentioned, we're not doing this out of a garage. This is in an FDA registered drug manufacturing facility that also has a licensed nuclear pharmacy in-house as well. I talked about some of the applications, and she mentioned the just-in-time manufacturing is not even days. We get orders from the physicians the day before, and we typically start working in the early morning because our drugs last minutes to hours. They don't last days. And so that is one of the true reasons that we have to be super close by to either a hospital or a clinic. So we don't have buckets and bins and big vats of stored medicine. We make just enough just to send out to the clinic for the day. And then by the end of the day, they're dead. They're gone. So we have an industry-leading multidisciplinary team. You can read all of the different types, but we have radiopharmacists, radiochemists, engineers, sales and marketing. We have a whole gamut of team that works with us, and we have more than 600 employees across the U.S. We were founded in 1993. We are one of the fastest growing radiopharmaceutical companies in the United States, with lots of years of service in both radiopharmacy, drug manufacturing, as well as research. We partner a lot with pharma sponsors because these drugs have such short half-lives. They can't be made in New Jersey or Indianapolis. They have to be made in the community where the patients are going to actually receive them. We're an international supplier of these drugs. We have close collaborators in Canada as well. And we have a really strong financial backing. We're private equity backed. Some of our current and near-term profile drugs, again, oncology, cardiovascular, and neurology. That's pretty much the main three core sections that we do. Theranostics and recurrent prostate cancer. This one's actually really near and dear to my heart. Before I started with this company, I was doing research in prostate cancer at UCSF, where we filed the new drug application for PSMA 11 for prostate cancer. And this is now going to be able to be used nationwide. The gallium-68, the GA68 that you see, that's the imaging agent. So that patient A, that's a gentleman who has recurrent prostate cancer, And all those little black spots are where the drug goes and binds to those prostate cancer cells. So it takes up that activity, and the patient goes under a scanner. It's called a PET CT, and it gives off the radioactive rays. And so we can create this 3D image. What happens then is we can go back with a different type of radiation. That's the 177Lu, or lutetium-177, goes back to those same exact cells and does very targeted killing of those cells. So very different from chemo. It's very targeted. This is something that we work very closely with pharma sponsors, and this is would be one of the drugs that we would be working on here. A second one is neuroendocrine tumors. Same kind of concept. You see the isotopes listed on the left, and we can take these isotopes and kind of like mush them together or compound them or radio label them with where we want the drug to go in the body. And that's how the whole thing works. So the former slide, you saw prostate cancer. This one you're seeing neuroendocrine tumors. So same kind of the patient gets imaged. Do you have this? Yes or no? And then we can go back and help with targeted killing. Alzheimer's diagnostic agents. I think everyone has seen the recent approval of an amyloid targeting agent, Biogen. Aduhelm had a lot of uproar in the news. There are three soon to be FDA approved drugs. The one in the middle, florbetapir, is already FDA approved. And these are used for imaging to determine if the patient actually has those amyloid plaques. If the patient doesn't have amyloid plaques, there's no use in giving a very expensive drug that targets amyloid. So that's one of the Alzheimer's agents that we would be looking at. Then on to cardiac, one of the bigger ones that is used across America. These are proven to significantly improve detection in cardiac disease in as little as 35 minutes. The caveat is that this isotope, which is N13, has a half-life of 10 minutes. So I can't fly that from my Denver lab. I need to be really close to the hospital to be able to get that to the patient just in time.
So is it only effective within 10 minutes? Because some medications effective once you've passed half-life or...
Yeah, so that's a really good question. So there's a lot of math that goes involved. Because the half-life is 10 minutes, that means every 10 minutes I have half of what I was dealing with. So if I know that a patient needs 10 millicuries and the patient is 10 minutes away, then I'm going to need to make a little bit more and give time for the driver to get in and the nuclear medicine technologist to assay the dose, get the patient ready. It's a very well-oiled machine when we go through this. It's the patient is there. Do you have line access for the patient? Is the radiologist stuck in traffic? Because all of those things, I can't start making the drug because it's not going to last long enough.
So in theory, and again, this is...
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm not the expert at this, but in theory, if something has a half-life and you can increase its effectiveness or efficiency by increasing the dose, so you could give a larger dose so that you have 60 minutes in which to implement the medication or something. Is that correct? So when you say 10 minutes, we don't have to make it and get it to the patient within 10 minutes. You have maybe a larger window than that.
You have a larger window, and so we would make enough activity to account for the decay time.
So what is the window then usually? I guess it depends on medication. But
yeah, sure. So for this specific one, the actual expiration, which is different from half-life, the expiration is 1 hour.
1 hour.
Does that answer your question? Yep. Sure. Then I think one of the bigger questions that everybody wants to know, well, how do you guys stay safe? This sounds really scary, and it's not. So every facet of that you see here is the same exact requirements that would be required in a hospital or a clinic that utilizes the drugs that we're making. So all of our facilities are licensed and inspected by the NRC, that's the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, as well as the State Department of Environmental Quality. All of our employees are very highly skilled, highly trained. My doctorate is in pharmacy. I then specialized in nuclear. I've been doing this a long time. All of our people are very trained in this. Did you have another question?
I do.
Okay. Go ahead.
Well, the reason I feel like I need to ask my questions because this is not my field. I do not understand this. So if you keep going, I will not be able to speak to it again.
No, that's okay.
So
feel free. Any questions?
But and so bear with me me trying to ask this question as well, please. If I respect and understand that all of this is highly regulated and that is expected and what we're leaning on, good thing. But all that regulation to me is about the people that are engaging with the medication, how it's used, the process in using it. But we haven't been told much about the risk to the community, meaning it's very targeted and you give only a certain quantity that you need. You make a quantity as you need for the patient. But in theory, you could have 200, I'm making up larger numbers.
Sure, of
probably.
course.
You could have 200 patients and therefore you would get a quantity large enough that could be dangerous. I don't know. And at what, is there any risk by the quantity of what you're producing or the environment around it, heat, cold, I don't know, things I don't know.
Yeah, no, these are all really good questions. So we apply for a license and we tell the NRC we think we would have, X number of patients in this area, and we would apply for a license that would tell us how much we are legally allowed to have, how much we are legally allowed to make. So at the beginning of the day, there's no radiation. And then we create the radiation that we need just for that day. At the end of the day, there's no radiation. So we're making just enough, just in time for the patients. We make it for the patients. It goes in very shielded containers that are approved by the Department of Transportation, and it goes in secured, locked vehicles that the drivers work for us, and it goes directly from our facility and goes directly to the hospital or clinic. The chain of custody is never either with me or the driver or the physician or technologist.
Maybe I can ask a couple of questions.
Sure.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I had one more question along that line. So, it all sounds.
You're always like this. Always.
I love it. Keep
Particularly when we're talking about nuclear things.
Exactly.
Well, and part of the reason is because I don't know enough, so I'm fishing for what I should be asking. There you go.
Sure.
So
I think you're also, go ahead.
So along those line of thought is highly regulated. It's great. I'm assuming then in that regulation, there's somebody regulating so you reach some max quantity because you can only serve. We allow you to make this much today because that's what's safe. And then while they determine that, are they also determining what we need? Can children, because you will reach max every single day. So can we have children next to you in the building every single day? Someone is looking at that and telling us if this is a good land use because I don't know.
Yeah. So the NRC looks at all of that as well. So everything is shielded with tons and tons of lead. I don't ever come up close to lead. We actually have, it's almost like the claw game at the grocery store because everything is behind lead shields. We are very closely monitored with body badges and ring badges. And most people are surprised when I tell them, but the average radiation dose I get working in the facility every year is less than the average commercial airline pilot. For emissions, all of those they go through multiple charcoal filters, multiple stacks. All of that is very tightly controlled. And the limit that we are allowed to have is well below the legal limit set by the NRC.
That's reassuring. Thank you.
All right.
You're welcome.
Two questions.
Sure.
The first one is, what incremental risks does this present to our community for having this in our community? Second question is, your company's has a 28-year history. What safety instances have you had during that period of time, and can you share us with your safety record over that period of time?
Yeah, sure. So to my knowledge, we haven't had any security breaches in that time. Again, this is a very tightly controlled.
What happens if a car gets in have you ever had it in the 28 years? Has a transporter gotten in an accident? Has there ever been an issue? What happens?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Yeah, you're good.
Scott Holbrook. I work with Ashley. I'm from Tennessee, 411 Boonesboro Road. So the interesting thing about the transportation questions is some of the drugs that Ashley's talking about are unique. They're not available because there isn't a facility close enough to IHC to provide those. But many of the drugs that are used in nuclear medicine and PET are already being transported through your city every day. Any city that would have a facility like Intermountain Health or any of the clinics that you have in the city.
I haven't gotten to that slide yet.
Sorry.
Go ahead, keep going.
So what's unique about this project compared to what exists today for your city is that the facility needs to be close enough to IHC to provide access to some new drugs. The rest of the activities are already existing in the metro area. I know they're not necessarily located in Murray, thus that's kind of the reason that for this request, we need to be closer. Someone needs to be closer, but as far as the transportation of these products go, they're being received, and I know the IHC folks could probably speak to this better than I can, but they are received numerous times per day at the facilities in Murray currently.
So I guess the first question is what if any additional risks does this present to our community? And then second of all, what's the protocol in the case of, it's obviously, it sounds like you have a great protocol within your walls, but people the medicine is transported. So in the history of the company, what issues what issues have come up? How have you dealt with them? They appear to be wonderful drugs that save lives,
right?
But we just want to, for me at least, I should say, to recommend it, I want to understand the risks that are associated with it and how they're mitigated.
Yeah, I mean, I think the risk, there is really significant incremental risk once the product leaves our lab. From the time it leaves our facility's walls and en route to Intermountain Health, it's under control by us, but regulated by the Department of Transportation. So we have to adhere to pretty strict and rigorous Department of Transportation requirements. In the 28-year history, I think I've been with the company for more than 10 years. I'm not aware of any issues with transportation. I think the most likely issue that could occur with the very short-lived radioactive drugs would be some unintended or anticipated traffic issue that would delay our driver. You were asking about the amount of product that could be made and shipped for just in time. We actually can't, there is a limit to how much we can make. There's kind of a couple limits. One is the physical ability of us to produce a large amount. If, we could really locate further away if we could produce as much as we wanted to. Really, the need for this location is the ability of the technology to produce enough product to actually get it to the patients. This location will allow us to provide enough product to meet the needs of IHC and really no more. So it isn't like we could produce an unlimited amount if there was ever an increased demand. The amount that IHC would use is essentially what we could produce from the facility in its kind of planned location. So I didn't mean to hijack your presentation.
So with that, can I ask a very pointed question then? So this will, if I'm a passenger in an automobile and I get in an accident with your driver and somehow the isotope actually manages to come out of its lead shielding, what is my risk?
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine it would be able to come out. I mean,
it's very challenging for it to come out of its secure containers. Yes.
A patient dose, a patient who's receiving one of these procedures would receive a dose very similar to another radiologic exam in a hospital. So chest X-ray, a CT scan, something of that nature would be a reasonable comparator.
So it's de minimis radioactive exposure, you're saying?
It would be very similar from a radiation exposure standpoint to the patient who's receiving the injection. It would be very similar to any other radiologic procedure in the hospital. So a CT scan, a chest X-ray.
So those of us that don't do this data, I mean, I can make assumptions because I've had X-rays done, and I am assuming that one exposure is not bad. But for those of us that know less than you, and in that scenario that Mr. Nate drew, we wouldn't be shutting down things, bringing out hazmat teams. Nope. People were infected. It would just be a car wreck that we would be dealing with. It wouldn't be.
Yeah, so our drivers are equipped with spill kits and there's extra lead. So but again, we're not talking about huge vats of stuff. We're talking about like the amount of like 5 COVID vaccines that would be shielded huge containers. So if that spilled out on this, I would, with the spill kit, wipe it up, put a lead brick over it because that attenuates the radiation, and I would step away. And from here, it would be okay. If that.
All right, so I have a question that won't affect our voting tonight, but you already know where you want to put this facility, right? And I know where I would put it. I'd put it in the back door of IHC. I mean, so do you have you don't have to say if you don't want. I drive past it every day. Anyway, it doesn't matter, but
we do.
Yeah, obviously,
and I don't have the address memorized, but 383 West.
Okay,
but I think
so right next to the hospital.
Why not on the hospital property?
So no transportation needed to walk across the street.
No, it's other side.
Yeah, it's a few blocks away. It's close.
So,
but
all right,
Mr. Hecker, I think the root of your question is why not on IHC property?
Perhaps.
Is there something we don't know? Why?
Well.
No, well, that's not really part of our discussion tonight.
Well, I'm assuming you're asking because is there something that we should know why it shouldn't be on this property versus this property?
Yeah, sure. Except you have to be fast because
Jason just wanted
Lisa has to leave at 8:15.
Yeah, I'll be
And we're going to have to make a vote before that because then we won't have a quorum. Or we will too.
And I mean, ideally, there is a lot of value to having it at the hospital. We work closely with the administrator at the hospital. And really the prioritization on that campus is care that absolutely has to be on that campus. As patient demand grows, there's certain things that we continue to move off that campus, and it's just absolute patient care activities that are remaining on that campus. So the fact that there's similar to the earlier discussion, there's parking, there's additional staff, and in order to, if we can pull that, have it in close proximity, and have those employees, that staff close, but just a driver to take it over, we feel that we'll be able to prioritize patient care on the main campus.
Great.
Then they don't want to dig in the toxic waste underneath the hospital.
Yeah, there's some of that. There's a lot more radiation there than in the isotopes.
Are there any other questions? I mean, I can keep talking, but
I mean, it sounds like for your neighbors and for folks that would interact with you, it's a minimum amount of radiation that would be safe. Is that fair to say?
absolutely. So a lot of these are actually, I think I have a map. So this is a map of all of the cyclotron facilities across America. And as Scott mentioned, there is one at Huntsman, but it's more of like a research purpose. So it wouldn't really be available for some of the unique biomarkers that we're bringing. And you can see here, most of the areas of the country have more than enough coverage. This happens to be kind of a gap in coverage. And so that's what we'd be providing to the area. This one is one of our newest ones and probably answers a lot of those. Can people be nearby? Because this is it kind of made me think of the previous discussion where it's like, oh, you can live there, you can work there, you can eat there, there's a pool. Like all of this kind of happens at our Pharmalogic Colorado site. It's kind of like a bio hub. So all of our facilities serve as training centers for pharmacy students, nuclear medicine technologists, but this specific one is in a community that has bioscience, there's residential areas, there are restaurants, there's lodging, there's retail, and it's smack dab in the middle. And if you were to stand on the outside of our door, your radiation exposure would be just like if you were standing in whatever the chain grocery store is in this town.
Okay. That's
Is there a reason you're not proposing a project of this? I'm kidding.
all right.
There's still time. All right. Any other questions? Thank you very much,
Thanks,
Doctor.
guys.
All right. I will open this for public comment. Do we have any public comment? Do we know if there's anybody watching,
Thank you.
streaming?
Let me check to see if by chance we have any. We did not receive any by the notices that we sent out. And
Susan, while you're checking, can I just excuse myself so they know I'm not angry or mad or disagree? I just need to.
we need to, before you leave though.
am I needed for a quorum?
Well, because then
Okay.
I don't believe Travis was going to, I think he was going to abstain from voting. If you leave, we do not have a quorum to vote.
Okay, I'll
So
stay.
if the commission
quick
says they can decide if
Well,
Travis, you can
Let's let
discuss it.
Susan see if there's any
I'm
public
okay.
comment.
There's no public comment.
Right.
No, sorry. We
I'm
have not
comfortable for another 7 minutes. I just didn't want to.
Is there
I thought
any
it was a natural break.
Public comment in the audience? I see none. I'm going to close public comment and ask if there's a motion to be made.
No, but I just want to make a statement that this is very high-end business. This is the kind of business that we should be welcoming into the city. These are good-paying jobs. This is a benefit to the community as a whole. So I think it is the
Hear, hear.
right direction.
Right.
I'll make a motion to forward a recommendation of approval of City Council for the proposed text amendment to sections 17.144.020, 17.148.020, 17.160.020, and 17.174.020 as reviewed in the staff report in addition of land use category 2834, radio pharmaceutical manufacturing and preparations to the standard land use code. Yeah, I
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Halfway through, I wasn't sure if I wanted to keep on going.
I'll second that motion.
Right. Motion is second. Any other discussion? All right. We'll take a vote. Susan?
Okay, Mr. Lowry,
Yes.
Mr. Pearson,
Yes.
Ms. McKavich,
Yes.
and I believe Travis, Mr. Nate,
I will abstain.
and Chair Hacker.
Yes. So congratulations. As Travis said, this is going to be great for the community. We'll really look forward to it. So you think you make more than one of these facilities here in the state? St. George needs something. Anyways, thank you very much. We appreciate it. And thanks for spending the time with us this evening. So moving along, Susan, you can leave. May I have motion to adjourn?
We don't have any other business.
All right.
So.
I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. We're adjourned at 8:11.